Good morning. This is the morning moment for April the 28th, 2026. Shalom. We take these moments at morning and midday and we do all kinds of things with these segments. And today's segment, I wish to take a moment to comment on something I was commenting on yesterday morning. I didn't repost that video. A couple things I wasn't as satisfied with that, so I decided I would kind of redo it this morning. And that is with the incident that occurred at the dinner in which the president and the first lady were present at that event. Erica Kirk was present, and she has definitely been kept in the public eye to a great degree in very negative ways by people that keep talking about how they're sick of seeing her, and yet they're the ones that keep talking about her. So, yeah. I will have more to say about that at the midday moment. Some things I think are just downright vile, wicked and evil and unfair. But about this incident that occurred with this individual seeking to do harm, I would think his greatest goal would be to do harm to the president. Doesn't really seem to have had much of a strategy or plan that would succeed in making it to the president. But regardless, this was a danger once again to the president of the United States. Another foiled attempt at assassination. And with this, we do see something called whataboutism with this incident. And this was definitely a leftist that did this. And you inevitably, sadly enough, it does seem to be inevitable, have people saying, well, what about this incident with this person on the right and this person with this incident on the right and this person? Okay. The problem with whataboutism, which is essentially just putting an ism on this idea of, well, what about, is you're not finding a way to actually justify what the person's done, unless you think that answering, just evil in general, if somebody else, this person does evil and they have some sort of tenuous connection to this person, then it's right for me to do evil to this person with whom the tenuous connection is found, and which gets into all sorts of ethical, moral, and of course biblical things. Very unchristlike mindset. But along with that issue, it is a way of deflecting away from the truth of the matter, which is regardless of what this person did, here's what they did. Here's what they did, or here's what you did. If you're the person using the whataboutism to try to deflect attention away from yourself. And, we see this in John 21 when Jesus and Peter had just been speaking, and then he points and looks at John, and basically to paraphrase, well, what about him? And Jesus, still paraphrasing here, basically says, what if I decide he lives until the second coming? There's some, so that's some whataboutism that, he told Peter, you follow me. Like Peter's responsibility was for Peter to make sure he was doing what he needed to do. But looking at some other person saying, okay, well, what about them? Yeah, that still doesn't change your responsibilities. And with this situation, with what happened, no matter what some other conservative or right-wing person has done, that does not justify the leftist or the so-called progressive or the liberal. And that term's kind of seems to have lost a lot of meaning in recent times. One thing, you had liberals in the 70s and 80s, and now you have the leftists and progressives now that do not seem to be the same animal. But, that doesn't change the wrong. And what this man attempted to do, it is still wrong. He still needs to be punished. And this sort of thing does not need to be tolerated. And to be fair, there are some on the left who, and among the Democrats and such, that are speaking out against this thing. That's good. That's good. And I've seen some people try to downplay that. It's like, give them credit, give them some credit for what they say. And just because they don't put it exactly how you want them to say it, at least they're acknowledging that it is wrong. That being said, I try to be a fair guy. I'm going to go after both sides a little bit here. Now, keep in mind, I would be considered by most to be conservative. Many would classify me as right wing, although I do not neatly fit into that category in all ways, depending on how you're defining it. But instead of pointing out the whataboutism, what some are doing when people on the left do the whataboutism and they bring up certain incidents that have occurred that are connected with, plots against people on the left from people on the right, or actual actions taken by people on the right as against the left. Now, try to be intellectually honest. It does seem like there's more of a problem with this sort of thing on the left. That is at least what appears to be the case. But regardless, when they bring these things up and they say, well, what about them? And what about them? The answer is not to downplay. See, here's where dishonesty enters on the right, because people will bring up things from conservatives and on the right, and they will act like there's been absolutely no problems whatsoever. That is not intellectually honest. That basically that's lying, is what I'm saying. That to downplay something is not the answer. The answer would be, they shouldn't have done that. That still doesn't change what this person did. The answer to whatever crimes, were committed on January 6th is not to downplay it. Now, I do think much of it has been exaggerated too, but that's another discussion another time. But it's not to act like it never happened. It's to acknowledge it and to say, hey, that wasn't cool. I don't agree with that. But that doesn't change what this person did. So in other words, let's be honest about it. Let's be honest and not downplay what may happen on our side, which I find myself having more trouble using that phrase because I don't neatly align with either side these days. Be honest about what's going on. If somebody does a whataboutism, you point out what they're doing. Don't downplay issues on the right. Have enough love to rejoice in the truth, no matter where that truth takes us. You have a good rest of the morning. Lord willing, be with you here in a little bit for Tuesday tips and for the midday moment. And shalom.